This is the Publishing for Startup panel. Thanks for being part of the Publishing for Startup panel. With me, I have Staffan Berlén. Welcome back.
Thank you.
You are the head of publishing from EG7?
Exactly.
Perfect, got it. And then I have Anton King. Welcome back.
Thank you, Per.
And you're the something publishing for Unity?
I'm, well, not the head of publishing, no, but I work in the new publishing channels department, you could say. But I'm a business developer for Distribution Portal.
Distribution Portal.
Yeah, which obviously helps people publish.
Brilliant. Yeah, you think I would know that by now, but
it's okay.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
And then I have Sutor.
Yeah, it's
Yanhui
my
Su.
great honor to be here. Yeah.
Excellent, welcome. and you're a researcher here at Högskolan.
Yes, I'm a PhD researcher in Skövde University. My research mainly focuses on how to help the indie game developer to do the self-publishing.
You're a researcher in how to help indie game developers do self-publishing.
Yeah.
That's
you don't even need us here. We should leave. We should leave.
Yeah. Do you include these people in your research?
Yeah, maybe I can consider that.
Yeah. Yeah. No tests on humans. Let's save that for the animals. All right. I need to know more about that, but I think I have one more speaker, and that should be none other than Justin Burnham. Are you with us on the video? Okay. Hey, how are you doing? Oh, there you are. Hey, Justin. Thanks for joining us. And
Thanks for having me.
You're with MTG, is that right?
Yeah, so I'm global creative director at DreamHack and of festivals with MTG and DreamHack ESL. And then for the publishing side, I'm crazy enough to have two hats. I'm portfolio director for Good Shepard Entertainment.
Excellent. Good. So you know both about events and publishing.
I have been with a publisher for many years or an event producer for many years. I'm crazy enough to actually do both.
Brilliant. And what about research? Would you give your body to research if we asked you?
I guess it depends what kind of research and for what good, yes.
We'll talk to Sutra about that. All right. So this is the Publishing for Startup panel. And I wanted to start with one of the questions that has been discussed in different views on the previous panels, which is it has many names by now. Some call it saturation, some call it bad words that I will not repeat. Some call it competition for visibility, and we've had a couple of different strategies, but I think everybody has agreed that this is one of the bigger challenges for startups. Now, if we bring that to publishing then, how can publishers provide some answers to that problem, if we start with that problem? Who wants to go first? Anderson.
Well, I think if you look at, especially indies, a lot of indies choose to self-publish. And I think one of the reasons that they do that is because they have no access or no connection to anybody who's associated with a bigger publisher. So they want to get, they've got a game made. They're very keen to get it out to find an audience, and so they'll go ahead and self-publish. But some of the pitfalls of that, especially when it comes to mobile publishing, if you know the two mobile stores, the incumbent stores that are currently being investigated for antitrust and monopolistic ways of working, it's very, very hard for an independent developer to get any kind of eyeballs or any kind of visibility within these sort of stores. So they look to bigger publishers who maybe have traction with relationships with these store owners and operators to be able to get some kind of featuring or promotion, etc. So in some respects, you have to kind of sell yourself or sell your baby to a publisher to be able to succeed on these bigger incumbent stores. From my perspective, I think that the whole gaming world is very empowered these days to be able to self-publish. However, you need to kind of do a little bit of homework and research, because there's ways that you can optimize your game with App Store optimization, for example, so that when people search for a certain genre, you'll be able to be seen. So with a little bit of homework, a little bit of expertise that you can find out there, you're probably able to get a level of success in the self-publishing way that you probably couldn't receive 5-10 years ago. Yeah. So things are better.
Right. But you can help accelerate that if you...
Yes, I mean, me personally, I can definitely help accelerate independent developers to find an audience, because what we do with our new product, UDP at Unity, is we enable developers to reach almost 1 billion new players through third-party app stores for Android specifically. So if you want to find new players, work with stores that are very engaged with you because they're screaming for content. You know, Google's got over 2 million pieces of content on Google Play. Some of these smaller stores have nowhere near that. So there's much less competition for eyeballs and much easier for you to build a strong case around the success of your game, right? So potentially that could help you in the long run. You know, you might want to release on a few smaller Android stores, build some good metrics and data, which you would then pitch to, say, a big publisher like Staffan, who would say, yeah, this is great. I can see D7, D30 retention is just what we're looking for. Let's invest some money and we'll go big and launch it on Google Play globally. You know, so that could be a great outcome.
So that's a method, a business strategy for self-publishing. I'm going to go to the publishers in a second, but it strikes me that I didn't properly introduce Anton. So Anton, you've been introduced a couple of times, but assuming there may be new viewers, let's do it again. You're my co-pilot working together with me at the Secretariat for the Swedish Games Industry, and you're here today to do what?
To read the comments on Discord. So whoever comments or asks questions on Discord, I'll be here to read them and give them to you.
Excellent. So Anton is your link, dear viewers, to joining the conversation. Don't hesitate to write your questions and comments. And if they're any good, there's a small chance that Anton will pick them up. Much like getting a publishing deal, really. Staffan.
Yes.
So is that your preferred selection way to look at the stuff that comes out of Anderson's system and then you pick it up and make something bigger of it?
I'm not really sure, and I hope this, what I'm going to say now, answers the question I think was asked. Is that a decade ago-ish, we had a kind of a indie uprising, so to say, where it was a really successful method to you could self-publish, you could develop your game on Steam, release it, and if it was good enough, it would sell. And it was like that for a couple of years until too many realized that. So kind of the market was flooded by indie developers. And during those years, the need of a publisher receded a bit. But now I think we've reached a point where we're kind of on the same path again, where a publisher, we can, with our additional muscles in forms of money and personnel that knows how to market games, we can help smaller teams to reach the correct channels. Because, of course, you can try to self-publish the shotgun way and hope that something sticks. But with a publisher as your kind of co-partner, they can kind of steer it in the this is where we will meet your audience, because this is the target audience that will like your game, so this is where we should put the effort instead of just spreading it. If that answered.
That was really interesting. You're actually helping me because you're building like a timeline that I can refer to in the rest of this panel. So I like it. Thank you, Staffan. Justin, going to you. But if my game is good enough, I'm not going to need any marketing, right?
Right. That's the recipe, right? I mean, it's just, the indie uprising and just the oversaturation is just an evolution of the game industry itself, right? You have all these different studios that are growing so big, and then they branch off. They leave those studios to form all these little studios of teams of 5, of teams of 7. And it's just the game industry as a whole is just growing in a way that it just can't keep up faster than any other entertainment medium, right? And then you also, the good side about that is you have more and more consumers coming out, right? But one of the other things that we need to keep track of is the innovation behind it. We can't just release this game on a small team and go, this is my favorite game. I want to copy this game. Or I want to copy that game. And that's part of the oversaturation problem, right? And that's great. And we're all fans of these games, but we can't keep copying that kind of development path, that kind of game loop and different things like that. So what personally, like what I look for when I'm evaluating a lot of these things are what I call like genre benders, right? Like, how are you innovating that roguelike? How are you innovating that Metroidvania? I mean, unfortunately, I can't tell you how many Metroidvanias come out per week. I lost count, you know, but what is different? Are you putting a survival game in a Metroidvania coat, you know? And that's what we need to start thinking of as we evolve as an industry, because a lot of it is stuck in that kind of, this is an action game, this is an action adventure. It's not as cut and dry anymore, and shouldn't be. And that's how you stand out.
Right. Do something new for a change.
Yeah, innovate, right? Innovate.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or have a really, really fun game.
And don't reinvent the wheel. Just add spikes to the wheel, and see it that way.
Correct.
Yeah.
And then maybe it can run on icy roads.
Yeah.
Excellent. Sutra, I want to go to you now, because now they've talked about different perspectives on visibility or attention or you know, getting through the noise or whatever. Is this part of your research? Can you say something academic about this?
Yeah, of course. Actually, publishing, if we go back to the definition about publishing can be recognized how to connect your game to the potential players together and maintain them well, deliver more revenue. That's the key issue. But if we go back to the startup company, especially they want to do the publishing, they have a lot of challenges. This challenge not only from the side, what kind of publisher we can find, and also they are facing challenges, especially how to do the self-publishing. From my research side, actually, I think publishing can be recognized as a kind of business. That means if we do the business, we need to think about the data. We need to make the decision to based on data. So that should be my research part, how to use the data to make a decision. Especially we just discussed how to do the marketing. Marketing side is a very tricky part for the indie game developer because they have no resource to do the marketing promotion. But how to do the marketing promotion with a limited budget, that all need to based on data. You need to track the data. You need to figure out which channel should have the high quality, which channel is very good for the user acquisition. That's all the philosophy we need to follow. Actually, before I do the PhD research here, I used to work for Electronic Arts, Chilingo. Chilingo is a dedicated publisher. We publish a lot of big titles. Actually, at the first beginning, most of these games company are very small studio. They are startup company. We help them to polish this game. We help them to do the marketing. We help them to do the soft launch, to do global launch, and make them success. The indie game developer also learn a lot from Chilingo. They know, okay, how to do the publishing. Even they do themselves in the future. For example, just like Angry Birds, cut the rope. They learn a lot from Chilingo. So that should be my research part. I want to use my working experience and really benefit for the indie game developer to do the self-publishing. Actually, publishing is a kind of art. You need to make a hard decision sometimes, but you need to think about how to use the data to drive the self-publishing process. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So that's a really good point. Use the data to make informed decisions and hopefully good decisions. But a problem for a startup is that they don't have a lot of data. I mean, they have what data they can extract from their own game, but there's a lot of data that they would like to have that's not available to them because that's secret or it's locked away or not accessible for various reasons or maybe doesn't exist. So how should they address that system? Problem, I mean.
That's a very good question. Some years ago, it's really hard for the indie game developer to track the data. But recent years, with a lot of third-party analytical tools, for example, game analytical tools, and also the Unity analytical tools, such kind of third-party third-party analytics tools really benefit for a lot of indie game studio to track the data. Actually, I did an interview with some indie game studio here. They actually already use such kind of tools to collect the data. They use the SDK integrated in their game and show the dashboard. They can see the daily active user, you can see the new user, you can see the ARPU. But the key issue, even they can see all the data, they cannot, based on data, to do the analysis, to make the decision, what needed to do. So that's the hard part for the startup company. You need to have a thinking to use data to make a decision. But sometimes when the data in front of you, you have no idea how to do that. So that should be one part. I will do my research to contribute for this part. Yeah.
Oh, okay. When is it coming out?
Can I get a copy? Early access, please.
Right.
Yeah.
Anton, I think you have a question.
We have a question here regarding for Anderson here. A question.
Thanks, Anton.
Yes. So they ask, are Unity helping out smaller studios working with new Unity tech, like DOTS, for example?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
How?
So we help in a variety of ways. We help for a smaller studio though. We have various different packages, obviously, when it comes to licensing our engine. For the bigger studios, they often buy the full service package, which means that they get somebody called a developer relationship manager, who is constantly in contact with them on a dedicated Slack channel. For a smaller developer, though, we often recommend people to use our forums. We have very good community forums and great ways to get tips and tricks from other developers, experienced developers with Unity, plus the people that are actually making the engine tool as well.
So you would point, for a smaller developer, you would point them to the
forums. Yes, exactly right.
For documentation. Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
exactly.
Thank you, because that brings me to another topic that I'd like to get your views on. So we talked about visibility, or if you want to call it marketing, or whatever label you want to put on it. But another part of the publishing work is to actually get the game finished. The support.
Perhaps the most important part.
Well, ideally, I mean, some games tend to be open beta forever.
That's true, exactly. Yeah.
But let's call it maybe advice or guidance or executive production, whatever you want to call it.
Maybe Stefan's got
exactly.
A quick comment on that would be, look, get the game out. If you think it's ready, get it out there and keep iterating, because that's the standard practice these days. It's always download the new update, and the developer will fix stuff and add more content, and you'll be a much happier end user. I don't know if you agree with that, Stefan.
Yeah, Stefan, let's hear your point.
Probably not. He'll be like, no, polish it, make it beautiful.
Yeah. I would rather have when the developers think they're done with the game, add 3 to 6 months of polishing and balancing it so that it's really ready when it's goes out. Yeah. Because if you the first month or basically the first week is so important for the game's longevity. So if it's released with it's 75% complete, it will lose so much of the critical mass that arrives at the first.
So by saying that, you would say that a bad first impression for an end user is critical. You've lost that user forever. Okay.
Yes. And sure, some games can, if they have the resources to updating it for a year after that, they can often, or not often, but sometimes fix that problem. But usually you don't have that luxury to we release a half-finished game and it's ready within a year, because then we might have, or the developers might have a finished product 12 months after, but the community is gone because they've lost interest. And
fair point.
Justin, we have very different views here. I love it. I love when panels have different views.
I'm the tiebreaker.
Yes, you are. Let's see. Is it get it out soon or make it right?
All right. I am so sorry, my friends. I'm going to have to go with Stefan. It's just, I always tell a lot of developers, you only launch once, technically. You really do.
Yeah.
You know, because I get a lot of questions like, you know, as a publisher, are you against early access? And my answer to them is I go, not if you launch with us, but if you launch with early access, then come back to us, you technically launched. You know, whether you call it a soft launch or whatever, it's a launch. You know, you put the product out there, you got the attention of people in one way, shape, or form. They either ran or kept playing. And you can get away with putting a mostly finished product out there. It all depends on how polished it is. It all depends on the resources behind it, you know, because as we've seen with the bigger titles with bigger resources, you know, No Man's Sky, the Sea of Thieves, and just things that keep getting updated better and better and better, you can bring people back. But it's so much harder to bring someone back that you initially had because they've already been soured to be pushed away. So unless you have those resources, I would not recommend that. And even sometimes when you do have those resources, you still can't save it. I don't really need to go into much more about Anthem, do I?
Ouch.
You know,
Wow.
so, but yeah, so I'm a little more towards Stefan's side, so.
Shots fired. All right. Thanks, Justin. Do you, Sutter, do you have any academic insights that can help inform this decision? So should they release as soon as possible or wait until it's good?
Yeah, I think it have a closely relationship with different platform. For mobile game, actually, we call it keep polish, keep tracking, track the data, based on data to analyze and to continue to polish that. That's the reason for mobile game publishing. We have the soft launch. That means only launch on small countries. For example, Supercell always launch in Australia or Canada. They collect all the data. They figure out if this data is good enough, they will continue to push forward. But if the data is not very good, especially for the day one retention is very low, they just kill that game and they celebrate with each other. I think that's the best way for the mobile game. For startup company, we talk about, I think the best way for startup company, the first choice should be, it should be better to cooperate with the publisher. And it should be better to connect with the publisher as early as possible. Send your game build to them. Even you have the alpha version or beta version, send to them. Because publishing, they will give you a fresh idea from the marketing side. They will evaluate your game and give some feedback. Some feedback is really benefit for the indie game developer to continue polish that. Because even sometimes they give feedback, okay, this game is maybe not very good. Maybe you guys need to stop. That should be the smart way. You just stop. You open up a new project. That's also good. But I found a lot of indie game developer. They said, I'm not ready. By now, the build is not ready. I want the game build ready, and then I make the global promotion. But actually, finally, when they reach to the global promotion, most of them will fail. So that's from the marketing side. If you cannot connect with the player more early, it will be a big risk for your team. So in that scenario, I think for the startup company, especially when you do the mobile game, it should be good for you to try as early as possible. You can try with Google Early Access. You can launch yourself. You can see the data. You can try with some small Android channels. You can try that, and you collect data. And the most important thing is that you need to set the benchmark for your game. Because if you do a soft launch, you have to set the benchmark. What kind of retention I want to get? What kind of ARPU I want to get? And based on retention, you keep polish that. That should be a target. If without this target, it's really terrible. So that means I strongly recommend it for the startup company. The first priority, you should collect with a big publisher. They will give you a lot of feedback. But sometimes publishers have their own internal standard level. Not all the game can pass their green light. So in that scenario, you have to try yourself. Yeah.
All right. Well, that's maybe the difficult part of all the passion we've been talking about today. Know when to kill your project. Also funny that a developer in Finland thinks that Canada and Australia are small countries. So my previous question was actually not about marketing. You made it about marketing, but I want to go back to development, because making a game is really difficult. It takes forever. You will fall out of love with your friends on the way. You know, the human price of making a game is astronomical. It's too high. So what can a publisher do to help make development easier, Staffan?
Oh, that's a good question. We can provide security, for example, with just the funding. That the developer know that, okay, we know that we have income for this period of time, and also depending, of course, of which publisher it is. Also, if we see that, okay, the team is too stressed and are crunching, everything is they are having a mental breakdown or something, you can always expand the development time and say, don't push yourself. We can add time, and but it is, of course, it depends on the publisher. Some publishers will just ignore that and push it anyway.
Keep cracking the whip.
But in an ideal world, that's where publishing can come in and say, provide the security for the developer.
I wish my publisher had heard that. The last game project I worked on as a developer, and that's ancient history. On our lunch break, we bought lottery tickets, and we had this deal that if we won the prize, we would pay back the advance to the publisher and just walk away from the project. Justin, on that joyous note, what can a publisher do to help support development?
I mean, Stefan's right in the fact that it all depends on the publisher. It's a very key sentence there. But besides the funding model, obviously, and the kind of security blanket that allows them, in all the different avenues. So you get the funding, you have the, other different things they might not have thought about. So advising, right? So like porting, localization, that kind of advice, because a lot of them they might not even be thinking of localization, right? They might be thinking maybe they're, what languages would be best to target for this type of game, so all those kind of little advice that they probably aren't thinking of, QA, additional QA resources. So all those little things that they're just, because right now, a lot of times they're just thinking getting the game done, right? How do we get the game done? And they're not thinking about these little touches that are going to finesse the game even more. But I'll probably say besides those things, and then obviously the marketing and the PR that we're as a publisher that we would do for them, I would say two big important things are relationships, because the doors that can open up, when you go to either events or the platforms that you might meet in meetings and all those various things, relationships are always key. Where one of the comments earlier was content is king, I would also say relationship is queen. Relationships are right there with your content, and then the other thing, which I probably would say is the most important, and not every publisher does this, which is a shame. I'm a gamer myself. It's not just because I'm in the industry. I'm an actual gamer, so I understand the product and provide feedback. And a lot of publishers, unfortunately, don't do that. They're just okay, here's the milestone, you didn't hit it, but they didn't help them try to hit it by providing feedback and helping them along the way. And that's crucial. I mean, if you have a publisher that understands your product and brings you to each milestone and gives you that feedback, you will have a much better relationship and a happier, successful product.
Sweet. Thanks, Justin. All right. So for the last topic, I'd like to talk about production budgets or funding or money, because I think the expectation for a lot of the viewers here is that they go to a publisher to get their project funded. And we've talked about everything but getting, well, not everything, but a lot of things, but not about getting the project funded. So what's the value there for a publisher to provide funding to get the project.
Maybe another, can I add to your question, Per?
Sure,
Perhaps,
please.
what are the key metrics you're looking for as publishers that help to release funding?
Good, even better. Yeah.
We're a great team.
Any opinion on that?
Mine?
Yeah.
Well, I think that the key... Well, I'm not a publisher, so it's hard to say. But from a layman perspective, or maybe not quite a layman, I've been in the industry for a few years now, I think that the key element that a publisher would be looking for is retention and engagement. So, and that metric really focuses on if players enjoy the game, enjoy the IP that you've created, the characters, the gameplay, the core loops, etc. And then also it gives a publisher an idea of, is it going to have a decent amount of chance to get some lifetime value out of a player. So if you have a very short retention life cycle, then publishers are probably going to be not that interested, is my general take.
All right, that's a good segue to you, Sutar. What about the metrics that could unlock the production value?
As I know, my friends, they are publishing company. They really provide the fund to the startup company. But usually the fund including 3 parts. One part should be the license fee. That means, okay, the game is very good. We do the internal evaluation that pass their internal green light. They will talk about how to give the license fee to make sure you can develop all the game, finish that, and the agent that publish globally. That should be one part. Another part is the minimum guarantee. That means this game, the agent and publish globally, and at least they can get the revenue share. That should be the minimum guarantee. And the third part is the revenue share. That means launch globally, every month they share the net revenue with the startup company. But sometimes it depends. Not all the games have the license fee, minimum guarantee. No, it depends on the benchmark. If the benchmark hits their target, that means, okay, very good game. We can consider to give the license fee or minimum guarantee. Sometimes if the game is an IP game, intellectual property, because the developer already pay a lot of money for the IP, so they consider, okay, we can give the license fee. But few of these games can get the license fee, even for the minimum guarantee. The internal process should be, once they decided to cooperate with indie game studio, they ask for the build. The build will first pass their internal green light. Second, they will do a soft launch on very small channel. And they set a benchmark, just you mentioned, especially for the day 1 retention, day 3 retention, day 7 retention. As I know, in China, we have a very different standard for the game based on the retention. For the super level game, the day 1 retention should be above 50%. If the day 1 retention above 50%, that's a super game. You definitely can get at least a minimum guarantee. But if the day 1 retention is above 40%, that means, okay, that game also fine. But if the day 1 retention is below 30%, that means it's really hard to publish. So maybe you need to give up. Yeah, that's the whole process.
All right. Yeah. Good, knowing when to give up. Staffan, do you use this method with the license fee and the minimum guarantee and the revenue split, or do you have other models that you use?
If I understand the question correct, basically how the deal is signed with the developer?
Well, yeah, or actually, I guess I think Anderson phrased the contract directly. What are the metrics that unlocks the funding in a publishing deal?
Depends. Sometimes, of course. First off, the funding is based on the potential of this title, and after release, it's usually either. Usually, of course, it's when the game is recouped. That's when you start sharing the profit between the publisher and the developer. The fees, the numbers there vary a lot. And sometimes it's also a bonus tied to, let's say, Metacritic or number of copies sold. That, okay, if you reach this, you will receive an additional,
chunk.
profit chunk of money.
All right.
Do we have time for
We
one
have
question?
maybe time if it's a really good question.
Yeah, it's a really good question.
Because I only will allow one more intervention, and it's going to be Justin. So if it's one for him.
Okay, right. So how to know how much it is, how to know what is too much, and how much is too little when asking for funding? How can we calculate as an indie team?
Yeah. Okay. So how do we know which production budget is right? Okay, Justin. I'm going to. This is going to be a tough one. How can we know that we're asking for the right production budget or calculating with the right production budget as a developer? And also, if I go with a publisher, am I not selling away all my rights for eternity and all the stuff that you said about visibility and support and help? Isn't that really only a trap?
No.
Well, there's a lot there. Okay, so we'll jump into the first part of that. I mean, the first part of that is regards to too much, too little. Let me tell you right now, there's never such thing as too little. Because I mean, if there's no development money and the game's about done, it all depends on how much we like it as a publisher, right? If we like it and it's fun and it fills the check boxes of, longevity of the game, retention, all those kind of things, the innovation, all that stuff. I mean, I'll gladly spend no more money on development money and just focus on marketing. That's fine with me. I'm totally happy to do that. In terms of how much is too high, that's every publisher varies. An indie publisher scope can be up to a few million. And then you have AA, which could be in the teens million, 15, 12 million. And then you have AAA that goes obviously is crazy, but every publisher is different with their ceiling. So that's hard. What I would say to gauge like how high it needs to go is, and some publishers don't have this, some publishers do, have an internal producer within the publisher team kind of meet with you to go through that milestone schedule, to go through that calendar, to kind of go through that, to make sure that, anything from lawyer fees to office supplies are factored in, and you have that contingency, even a contingency plan of the 3 to 6 months, because when you recoup first, there might be a lull period where you're not getting paid after the game's released yet because there's a recoup there, right? So how do you cover yourselves for that recoup and during that time period? And that's where the contingency might come in and stuff like that. That was the first part. What was the second part?
The second part is, aren't publishers evil?
Can I add in quickly there?
No, we're out of time, actually. I'm sorry. I would love to go on.
This is important. So 10 seconds.
Okay, 10 seconds.
Make the budget, it should make sense, and add 20% on top of that. So,
There you go.
You made it in 10 seconds. I've never seen anyone on stage saying we'll do it in 10 seconds. Okay, so Justin masterfully dodged my trap question.
Oh, publisher's evil.
Yeah.
Publisher's evil,
Yeah.
right?
All right.
So no. I mean, in all honesty, my opinion, unless the deal is an amazing deal, you should never be selling your IP. It is near and dear to your. This is my opinion. Everyone's different. Unless it's an amazing deal, you should hold the rights to your own IP because you don't know what will become of it. And you're the creatives. Your publisher is your partner, not your boss. And so they shouldn't be evil. And if they are, you shouldn't sign.
I love it.
I agree.
Brilliant. I think this was fun. I think I learned a lot. I look back on my own publishing days in a different light now. I think I was pretty evil, actually. I think we touched some of the difficult questions. So this is almost like a family therapy. And it's also a very nice way to close the business day of Sweden Game Conference, because folks, all we have left for you is the wrap up. And before we do that, I wanted to give a big hand of thanks to the panelists on the publishing panel. Thank you so much for being part of this.